We're starting with the news that rocked the entire sports world yesterday, maybe just the entire world. In the middle of Selection Sunday, Tom Brady is back. Sucks to be the guy who paid over $500K for Tom Brady's last touchdown pass football hours before he announced he was coming back. You just hate to see it. Jeff, with the news of his return, Tampa Bay's odds to win the Super Bowl jump back up from plus 2,500 to plus 850, third best odds. So with Brady back, do we expect a deep playoff run, or do they need to keep adding this week? I mean, they signed center Ryan Jensen to a 3-year deal, slapped that franchise tag on Chris Godwin, but they do have a lot of guys who are set to become unrestricted free agents.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of questions about the football guy as well. Like, what is he doing right now? But you're right. Like, the Bucks. Here's the thing. It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? I mean, with the Bucks, they do still have some unanswered questions. There's a lot of players, just with the tag of where are they going? Are they going to come back? Is it just automatic that everyone's coming back to the Buccaneers this year? But even if they do lose some players, and they already brought back Ryan Jensen, which I think is perhaps like the biggest piece. I mean, center is it's an underrated position in the NFL, quite frankly. Even if they do lose a couple players, let's not forget, I think there's a very solid reason why Tom Brady decided to come back, and that's because the NFC South stinks. There's no other quarterbacks in this division. This is a layup. Even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like at 80% of what their team was last year, probably going to win this division with their eyes closed. Then they can add at the trade deadline if they want. Tom Brady can kind of work himself back into the year if he wants. So I think that, their odds right now, it's inflated. It's an overreaction to the news cycle. We see this all the time. And I also am not sure where I'd necessarily rank them until free agency is done, done playing out. But the NFC, as we've talked about already at the beginning of free agency, it's not the stronger conference. It's a weak conference. You have kind of the Packers, maybe the 49ers up there, who are still, we don't even know who's going to start a quarterback for them, and everyone else. So, yeah, I think that the Buccaneers are going to be in the mix again, and they're probably going to walk to an easy division win again.
Yeah, Pierce, what do you think about this? Are you kind of waiting until free agency's over to reserve your decision-making for this?
No, we'll jump the gun and start making some bold predictions.
Great.
But
Love
the
that.
first prediction I want to make is, in terms of this football guy, I mean, it's terrible for him. He's just lost all this money. And I would step back, and all those NFT guys who think that they've invested in something very valuable, just look what happened to this guy. Mm-hmm. And maybe learn a lesson there. We'll see how this whole NFT thing works out. Brady is fine. Brady looked at the top of his game. Everything is going to be fine for the Buccaneers. The division is winnable. As Jeff mentioned, the NFC has some top-loaded teams, but overall, it's really not the biggest and toughest division. They should have made their way through the playoffs this season. They haven't changed that much. They should be fine next year. Again, all bets are off once we get to the playoffs, and that is a year ahead. The first thing the Buccaneers need to do is get on the phone with Ali Marpet and say, hey, we're going to need you to unretire on the offensive line. And then if they can get him back and then maybe possibly add another weapon, because we saw when they lost Antonio Brown, they did start to struggle a little bit offensively. They do need another receiver. And there are guys out there. They can get role players. I mean, we've mentioned Cole Beasley before. Cole Beasley would be pretty good for this offense. You don't really need another star. You just need another role-playing receiver that can help move the chains. If they get that, the defense is already there. You get Marpet to unretire. They're going to look like a favorite in the NFC.
The Buccaneers could really use Tyler Johnson to step up this year. If Tyler Johnson steps up this year, that would help the Bucs in a lot of different ways. They wouldn't have to spend on wide receiver. They could focus more on other areas. So that's a big name to watch this year for the Bucs.
And unretiring is all the rage, so we'll see how that works out for Marpet. All right, Amari Cooper, let's talk about him. He's headed to Cleveland. So break down the fantasy impact for him. Baker Mayfield and the Browns offense. Do you like him here, Pierce? He's coming off a season with 865 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns on 68 catches.
I like Amari Cooper. I'm not sure what I feel about this offense with Baker Mayfield. If Baker Mayfield could live up to his potential, then yeah, this could be a really potent offense, but that is a big if. I know a lot of people are down on Cooper because his numbers were down this season, but you got to step back and look at his numbers in context of what was going on. Dallas's offense wasn't as explosive as people expected it to be. There also were multiple weapons on that offense that spread out the targets. And, they played conservative at times and just let their defense do work. So there's a good reason why Cooper's numbers went down. And it's not because he's not the same player that he was. He's only 27 years old. And the reason the Cowboys are getting rid of him is mainly just because of, A, they've got other receivers that can step into the role, and B, they got other receivers that are cheaper. They can't afford him. They're also going to have to let go of Ella Collins at tackle, who is a solid offensive lineman, but they can't afford him either. So he's not damaged goods. It's just the issue of Cooper is, his quarterback may be a bit of a downgrade. I'm really disappointed that another team didn't go after Cooper. It's just his price tag is so expensive, very few could afford him.
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, they were mainly shopping him because $20 million salary for next season becomes fully guaranteed on March 20th.
Yeah, the C to Pierce's point was that his contract was a little ridiculous, right? And it just made so much sense. They're stocked up a wide receiver, so Amari Cooper was just the odd man out. So from a real life perspective, I like the move for the Browns. Like, this is a team that they were about middle of the league in terms of explosive pass plays last year, which probably shocks a lot of people that they were even that good. But Cooper, one thing he has done well over the last couple of years, he's remained a good deep ball player. He went 11 for 21 for 309 yards and 3 touchdowns on deep passes last year. So that explosiveness is still there. Yeah, his DVOA ranks and just his overall efficiency, it has gone down the last couple of seasons, but there's multiple reasons for that. And some of that is just the style of the Cowboys offense, right? What I would worry about for fantasy is that the fact that Kevin Stefanski's offense have ranked 30th and 31st the last 2 times he's been the OC, and this goes back to his days with the Vikings, in wide receiver targets. So Amari Cooper's production, he's probably going to have some explosive pass plays. I think they're definitely going to work him in, like a lot of deep shots with him. But like Jarvis Landry led them with 101 targets last year. Is Cooper going to come in and get more targets than Landry? I just, with the style of offense that Stefanski runs, I don't think so. So I think it's going to be very hit or miss for Cooper. Probably a good best ball target. I know people love that phrase, but it's probably true. He's going to have those explosive days. Then you're not going to hear from him for like 3 weeks.
All right, guys, the Panthers and Saints have reportedly made trade offers to the Texans for Deshaun Watson. So, Jeff, which team do you think can maximize his fantasy potential?
If you'd asked me this question last year, I would have said no-brainer. It's the Panthers, but I've seen enough from Matt Rule. This is a guy who, fired his OC midseason last year, but he really didn't change anything. Like, the Panthers ran the ball in almost 70% of their first down plays last year. They averaged under 4 yards per rush play. I mean, and they kept doing it. Matt Rule has come out and said he wants to run the ball 33 times a game. How is that going to maximize Deshaun Watson's talents? I think the Saints have a better chance. How the Saints are going to fit Deshaun Watson in to a competitive team with where their cap number is a different story. But I'd be more bullish on Watson going to the Saints right now. Michael Thomas potentially back. He'd be playing in a dome for a lot of the year, including games against like Atlanta. So I'll take the veteran team here, assuming we could get Michael Thomas back on the field and maybe they could, get something out of a guy like Traquan Smith. I think there's more potential for him for the Saints right now. I just the Panthers are a franchise that just keeps continuing to make silly decisions. The Sam Darnold signing, this completely ridiculous offense that's built to run the ball 3 yards on first down. I don't see that changing just because they bring Deshaun Watson in. So I'm going to lean with the Saints here.
Are you leaning with the Saints, Pierce?
I'm on the exact same page as Jeff. I agree. The personnel is pretty much the same. Both, if healthy, have some pretty good receivers. Both, if healthy, have good running backs, and both project to have some pretty bad offensive lines in 2022. The tiebreaker is the coaching staff. Matt Rule has been a disaster. Joe Brady, the whiz kid, was a disaster. They fired him and replaced him with Ben McAdoo. How is that going to make this team any better? At least with New Orleans, we have a new coaching staff that may be willing to develop around Watson and basically give him the keys to the car. That's not going to happen in Carolina. They're not going to unleash him. It's going to be Matt Rule's way or the highway. Whereas with the Saints, they may just go all in on Watson, go explosive, and see what they can get. I mean, what else do they have to do? I mean, they've got the potent weapons there. They're probably not going to win very many games. Might as well give him a shot. Maximize might not be the best word either, because I don't expect either to be a really good fantasy spot for him.
Okay, very pessimistic. Thank you, Pierce. Just kidding. The Chargers made a play to keep up with Denver and Kansas City with that Khalil Mack trade. So is the Mack deal and the Mike Williams extension enough, or should they be targeting someone in free agency? They should have around like $12 million in space. So what's a position of need for them, Pierce?
Here's some more pessimism. It's never enough. You've got to do more. You always have to do more. Hey, Khalil Mack on the surface is a bit of a head scratcher because we think of him as an edge pass rusher, and we know that they need help with the running game. But Mack actually is one of the few people who are an elite pass rusher and have an above 90 PFF grade against the run. So that definitely shores up that weakness. But they need to continue to build on that. They should try to add more to the defensive line, the interior. If they can get another linebacker through free agency, that would be great as well. Offensive line work can help. They're good in terms of skill positions. They just have to make sure they can probably get away with being the 20th rush defense in football, but they can't be dead last again. If they can improve about 10 spots against the run, then I think they're Super Bowl contenders.
Jeff, what's your take here?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is a pretty solid move for the Chargers. Maybe you're not getting Khalil Mack in his prime, but as Pierce mentioned, I mean, like a few years ago, there was a lot of people were on Khalil Mack over Aaron Donald. Let's not forget. That's how good an all-around defensive player he was. And there was good reasons for that. He actually graded out as like a better rush stopper than Aaron Donald. And he hasn't fallen off that much. He's a little bit banged up, but with Joey Bosa there, I'm not sure how much they may not need him to be like 100% to make a huge impact. I think with that extra cap space, you can always add offensive weapons considering the division they're in. They have to play the Chiefs twice. Now they have to deal with Russell Wilson. I don't hate the idea of going out and adding another decent wide receiver, maybe targeting the tight end position and getting a guy like Evan Ingram if he's still out there. I think those are all possibilities to spend. But yeah, the one area for the Chargers that they just can't afford to not pay attention to is that run stuffing on defense. So get another guy in the interior, at least add some depth. That's probably the first area. But I really wouldn't care. I wouldn't mind this team adding more offensive depth either. They're just in a division where if you do not have the players and the explosiveness, you're eventually going to get beat in a shootout by one of those other elite teams.